Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thanks for joining me for another of our Torah Study sessions. What a week. I'm doing this on Thursday. I don't know what's going to happen, obviously, the rest of the week, but already it's been kind of a doozy with the events at the Capitol. Anyway, but still, as always, we take our news, we put it off to the side. It will be there again later. You don't have to be watching it all the time. You can always take a break. We've got our kippot. I got some new ones. I didn't get them, but I found them in my parents' house. So I wonder where this one. It's got an Israeli flag and American flags all around. I got it in Israel. Must have been in 11th grade. So that would have been 15, 16 years ago. Quite a while, but we've got my Tanakh. I'm going to open it up. This week's Torah portion is Shemot. It is the very first book of the book of Exodus. So Shemot is Hebrew for names, right? I'm positive that's the case. No. Yes. Yeah. Shemot is plural for names. Because the very first part of the book, the very first part of the chapter, rather, and the first part of the book, because it's the first chapter in the book, and the books are named by their first chapter, and the chapters are named by the content, and so in English we say Exodus, because that's the story of the Exodus, but in Hebrew it's Shemot, and Shemot is names, and the very first part of the portion is just a list of names of the people who descended from Jacob and Joseph, who make up the Israelites, who are slaves in Egypt when the story begins. So, we are going to start off with our Torah Blessings before we read anything. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. So we're going to read kind of a longer bit than I usually do, but it's Moses at the burning bush, and God has called Moses to go down to Egypt to free the slaves, and as you may know, Moses says no at first. But Moses spoke up and said, "But what if they do not believe me and do not listen to me, but say, 'The Lord did not actually appear to you'?" The Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" And he replied, "A rod." And God said, "Cast it on the ground." He did. And it became a snake, and Moses recoiled from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Put out your hand and grasp it by the tail." He put out his hand and seized it, and it became a rod, a staff, in his hand again. That is how they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob appeared to you. Further, the Lord said to him, "Put your hand into your pocket." He put his hand into his pocket, and when he took it out, his hand was encrusted with snowy scales. And God said, "Put your hand back into your pocket." Moses put his hand back into his pocket, and when he took it out, it was fine again, and it was healthy like the rest of his body. I'm going to skip a bit. Moses then says to the Lord, "Please, O Lord, I have never been a man of words, either in times past or now, that you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." And the Lord said to him, "Who gives man speech? Who makes him dumb or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will be with you as you speak, and will instruct you what to say." So, God shows to Moses, here are some miracles. It's like a sample. Here's your rod, put it down, it becomes a snake, pick it back up, becomes a rod again. Takes his hand, puts it in his shirt, it becomes leprosy. That's what it means by it becomes white. It becomes like infected, it looks very unhealthy, it looks drained of blood. Specifically, I believe that the Torah is referencing leprosy, but I don't think the word actually is there in the Hebrew. Leprosy shows up later in the Torah. And then God says, put it back in, take it out, it's healthy again, which essentially is magic, which is sort of a very easy way to demonstrate to the people, hey, by the way, I can do these cool things because of God, therefore you should listen to me. But then Moses says, I'm slow of speech, which is generally interpreted as I have a stutter, but obviously there are lots of ways people can be slow of speech. And God's reply is sort of, it doesn't matter. Like God says, I make people speak. I make them speak. I can make them slow of speech. I give them hearing. I can take away their hearing. I give them sight. I can take away sight, whatever. But God doesn't fix this part of Moses. Fix even is a word I'm not super comfortable using, but it just came out of my mouth. But we can examine that. Where God doesn't then say to Moses, okay, cover your mouth, uncover it. Oh, look, you're no longer slow of tongue, just like with the hand, just like with the staff. Look, we've now changed something fundamental. But in fact, God just sort of tells Moses to suck it up and just says it's going to be fine. Which is inspiring in an odd way for people who have various disabilities, because it means that if you want to serve God, if you want to serve the Torah, if you want to do something useful for the Jewish people and Jewish history, if you have a disability, that's not going to stand in your way. Moses, our most venerated hero and teacher, has a disability, and God's response to it is, so what? You can do it anyway. And I think that's a very inspiring message in and of itself. There's a lot of barriers that people can encounter, especially if they have disabilities, and I think that it's a really great thing that the Torah essentially says Moses is given the greatest task of all, and he's able to succeed. I mean, part of it is because he's able to get the support that he needs. He gets God, he gets Aaron, he eventually gets all of the Israelites to agree with him. There are the plagues, etc., etc. There's a lot going on. Moses doesn't really do it on his own. He is the leader. He has this disability, but he's still able to make a support system. And the support system doesn't take away his disability. It helps him overcome it. And when Moses dies later, he presumably still has this disability, even though he's been speaking to the people for basically the rest of his life. I think I mentioned this when we were doing it. The book of Deuteronomy is just Moses talking the entire time. So this guy who is slow of speech ends up at least becoming more confident with it and able to do it. And everyone is understanding of it. Maybe he reads the book of Deuteronomy, maybe he says the book of Deuteronomy slower than we would imagine. But in fact, he has slower speech. He does it. It's great. So I think that that's a really powerful message, that even if you have some kind of disability, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's chemical, whether it's mental, whatever it is, that's okay. There's still a place for you in Jewish history, and there's still a place for you in Jewish action. So with that, let's move on to the Misha Berach, the prayer of healing. Whether you know someone who has coronavirus or is sick from some other thing, or if you have someone who's really dealing with pandemic fatigue and they're having a hard time, or just generally feeling lonely or it's difficult. It's winter. It's been kind of warm lately, but the winter can still kind of get people down with the less amount of sunlight. So whatever it is, think of that person. Or if you're fortunate enough that you don't know anyone who's really sick, maybe think of ways that you can support people or support yourself or find support for yourself who have disabilities, who are facing barriers, but who can be supported around or above them. So with all that in mind, let's take some time to reflect. So, thank you all very much for spending this time with me. I hope you have a very Shabbat Shalom. If you have any questions about anything, about this portion, or about anything else, feel free to reach out to me at the Jewish Life email. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Shabbat Shalom.